Hi, my name is Jennifer Brennan, owner of Much Needed Wellness Therapies, and I'm here with Amanda Wilson. And we're both Reiki master teachers, and we're here to discuss some real life issues that we've experienced and hope that our life experiences can help you get through whatever you're dealing with. Today, the topic we want to dive into is self love and how important it is, and how to address the things that need to be addressed.
Yeah, and how Reiki actually can expedite the process of growing, self-growth and in self-love. I think we've talked about how Reiki it starts in the heart chakra. Giving and receiving Reiki is a means of sharing love. So as a client, if you're receiving, it's a way for you to love yourself, and also a way to become self-aware.
Mhm. My clients, the perfect client that I can get on my table is somebody who's not used to getting taken care of. I love holding space for people who aren't used to having people hold space for them. People who are constantly taking care of others and they don't have anyone taking care of them, or they don't feel comfortable letting other people take care of them. Those are the people that I love, kind of shaking up a little bit and bringing the reality to the surface.
Yeah. And I really like working with people who often already know that there's an issue, but they're not sure what it is, and helping them, discover through their energetic patterns and their behavioral patterns and thought patterns of what those things are and why they are, and then how to fix them. Like Reiki is an excellent method to help people release those blocks and become the better version of themselves.
And a
And
lot
as
of people
they
don't
become
even
better versions.
But a lot of people
Right.
don't even know. They don't even know that they're
Right.
struggling.
Right.
The people that I connect with the most because they're more high functioning in their low self-worth.
Yeah, I love that.
They have cracks in the foundation and they feel stable in their lives. I always felt very confident, and self-assured, but I had these insecurities that I didn't know that were just lingering under the surface. And it wasn't until I started seeking therapy for anger management that I thought I had anger problems, but I was just in a bad relationship. And he was triggering things that I didn't know were needed to be addressed. I had abandonment issues, and
Mm,
those abandonment issues were causing codependency and my need to take care of him and nurture him instead of investing in myself. I was investing that energy in him. And so when I got farther, as far along the process, and I really learned how to invest in me, it's just as much as I'm investing in others. Sky's the limit.
right.
Sky's the limit.
Right. And for me, self-love was always a struggle too. And I can, think way back to, childhood when I would just live in a fantasy world of what would it be like to be someone else, especially, my friends at the time, because that's really who I knew as a small circle as a kid. But would my life be better? Would it be different from what it is? And that initially is where my struggle started, but becoming aware that it's something I needed to work on really didn't happen until I also got into therapy and recognized how the history that I lived and survived through. I survived through a lot of medical trauma as a child, which then led into a lot of trauma in adulthood because of the way that I looked at myself. So I put myself in these situations because I didn't love myself enough.
And you
Um,
probably put others first.
I did. I always put other people first. My needs are something I'm learning right now. Like, what are my needs? Because I never really was able to define a need for myself because I was constantly helping others.
And focusing on what their needs are and making sure they're happy.
Yeah, that people pleasing
Mhm.
mentality.
Yeah.
And then that, then always kind of putting myself in a victim role, and playing things out as though I was the victim, even in times when I wasn't.
Because you're the common denominator in a lot of those situations. You're
Right.
probably in similar situations happening over and over again. It's like, oh, poor me.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's these
Accountability comes.
cycles. Yeah, it's the cycles. So it's like, I had these, sort of traumatic abusive relationships throughout my teens and my early 20s. And then, then maybe I wasn't in such an abusive relationship, but then I got an abusive boss. And then so it's like these things kind of like just keep playing until you really learn
The lesson.
the lesson that it's presenting.
Because you know me, I'm a firm believer in that life teaches you a lesson and then it tests you on it. And if you're not paying attention to that lesson, and you're just going to keep repeating situations.
Yeah.
And those are the things that you really need for your soul. And if we go back to soul contracts, and that may have been just something that your soul was supposed to know, to evolve and to grow into.
Mm-hmm.
But it also may have been a part of your path. For me personally, I feel as if the life experiences that I went through of having low self-worth and not completely loving myself, I feel like that was predestined, because one of my purposes is to help people see their true beauty. How can I truly help them do that if I've never, had the experience of not having it? I kind of relate it to a male gynecologist. One of my best friends, she said, it's like kind of having a male gynecologist, because he can read all the books he wants, but he has no clue what's going on in there. And people can relate to that, So if you're telling me your story and I'm trying to help you get through something, and I can actually associate to every emotion you're going through, it's just a whole different experience. And it leaves the person who needs your help to feel more comfortable knowing that you're not judging them.
Yeah.
Knowing that you're coming from a place of understanding, love, and compassion.
Right.
And you can do that for them. They may be able to start doing that for themselves.
Right. Well, and in Reiki, and like we talked about, like it starting in the heart chakra, the heart chakra is such an important part of our energy structure. And if our heart is imbalanced, then our upper chakras aren't getting the energy they need, or they're getting too much energy, and the lower chakras are getting deficient, or they're, you have a analogy of the heart being a valve.
Yeah, from to the upper and lower chakras, and then the energy's not flowing properly through. It just causes dysfunction everywhere.
Right. And I think too, like the whole concept of the heart chakra, the right is the right to love and be loved, and the demon is grief. And so when we look at the right of it, if we are not able to love ourselves to the, unconditionally, not having that unconditional love of self, we can't unconditionally love the world around us. And when we talk about love, it's a much bigger concept than what a lot of people put on it, and it's not external. It's not something that you will get from anywhere other than you. And when you are able to love yourself to your full capacity of loving yourself, then you'll be able to spread that love to the world. It's then, and the rest of the world is impacted by your growth and your change. We start here and it goes out from there.
It's really amazing. And what the work that we're doing is going to affect generations that are going to be behind us. For me, being a mom, I know that if I can break some of this trauma and some of these negative patterns and some of these low self-worth thought processes, I can change that in my son. And he may not feel the same way. He thinks I'm the most confident person in the world.
Yeah.
Because I don't let him see any of that. And I just want to break the curses.
Yeah. Well, and being that, energetically, the DNA structure, like your energy is his energy, that goes up the ladder too. So like me, focusing on me and changing and growing and breaking cycles of my DNA will then also impact my parents and the other people in my family who came before me, because that DNA structure is changing. So then they're going to move into a span of growth and self-love as well. If I learn to love myself, then they will also love themselves.
Change.
Yeah, it's just this, it has to start somewhere, and we have to start the change. We have to be the change, as you often say. Two, I think with self-love, compassion and forgiveness of self are so important. And I think they're also very difficult to do. We can give compassion of others and forgiveness of others so much faster sometimes than forgiving ourselves. And we need to really get into a space of, okay, maybe I reacted immaturely,
Mhm.
and recognizing how I reacted was immature, and releasing that and forgiving myself, because I am human and I'm going to make mistakes.
We have this perfectionism that we're trying to live to these standards that are unrealistic.
Oh yeah.
And that's why I feel like it's very important to be transparent and authentic, because if everyone thinks that you have it together, they're going to be way more hard on themselves,
Yeah.
because they're like, wow, she's got it all together. I know nothing.
Right.
And
Right.
then the cycle continues. The
Yes.
cycle continues of that lack of self-love towards self. And
Yeah.
I find that for myself, I tend to have an easier time giving love than I do receiving it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's saying the same thing. The way I speak to myself versus how I speak to others, it's so different. And
Mm-hmm.
like I'm farther along in my self-love process, but it's an ever evolving thing. There's
Right.
some days where I feel great, and there's some days where I'm like, ugh, I need to get it together.
Yeah. Right. Well, and that, like you've said in the past, when we've talked about this topic about, self-love being a verb, not a noun. And, I love that, because it's a process and a practice. And anytime something is a practice, it means that we just continually do it. We continually try to make it better. We continually are doing something.
You have
It's
to feel
not,
like you deserve it. And
yeah.
that is all what comes into self-love. I feel like that's a big component, is living a life that is deserving of
Yeah.
you.
And it's not selfish.
Wow.
No, that's another thing I hear often is, well, I'm being selfish by not putting somebody else's needs before mine.
Yeah.
But that's not true. Like, so many people think that they're, it's more ego-centered to think that you are needed at that capacity. Does
And
that
that
make sense?
because that people aren't capable of handling their own lives, and you enable them to not ever evolve themselves. You're
Right.
like, oh, they can't handle it. I'm better than them.
Yeah.
They
But when we live in the state of like, oh, well, I'm a kind person and I'm doing this out of compassion and love, we can't see that we're actually doing it for different reasons. And I think that's what's so important with Reiki, and even receiving it, or just even self-exploration and self-development, is that we start to actually look at ourselves in a manner that we can make change. And we'd already talked about awareness. Like, awareness is so important. And with Reiki, we can see the why. We can see the energy imbalances. We can look at those energy imbalances and say, okay, these are the things that could cause this energy imbalance, and these are the things we can do to bring that back into balance. So it's a self-awareness, self-development process.
Yeah. What do you think that people can ask themselves uh, to really see if they're struggling with self-love?
I think, a lot of it is, where do I place my focus? Where is my focus in every situation? Um, is it that I'm pleasing someone else? Is it that, like, I'm making sure that somebody else is being cared for before myself? I think it's about, like, asking yourself, um, what is my past and what are my core beliefs about myself? What are things that I truly, where, even if they are false, and they are false, but they've been, in your core center for so long that you actually believe them. And I'll just use an example of, having been in a million, toxic relationships, and having certain people say things to me, even though I know that they're not true. I house them as though they are in my energy system. And so kind of like you have to dive in deep to you, and what impacts you in a way. I mean, I'm kind of struggling with answering that question. How would you ask? What
Well,
would you ask?
for me, I noticed things that I was building other people up and not building myself up.
Mm,
I was investing in more other people more than I was investing in myself.
yeah.
Once I recognized that, um, and I was getting myself into chaotic situations, and I'm like, oh, it's, there. I kind of got dragged into it, but allowing yourself to be put into situations that are chaotic, that are other people's problems, are still a form of self-love, a little deficit, because if you truly believe that you deserve a life of peace and calmness and serenity, you won't allow those things in your life.
Yeah.
So I just think it's important to really look at what are the situations you're allowing yourself in your life? Who are the people that you're allowing in your energy and in your space? And what are you engaging in? Like, what
Hmm.
behaviors are you engaging in? Did you ever hear that saying, don't blame the clown, blame yourself for going to the circus?
Yeah. Yeah.
Stop going to the circus
Yeah.
and really take accountability. I think accountability is number one in self-love, self-care, and really taking a hard, honest look at your life. And are you living a life that feels fulfilling? Are you forgiving yourself? Are you compassionate to yourself? Are you living in a life where you feel that you are nurturing your soul and your purpose to be here on this earth? And if
Yeah.
you can say those things, then maybe there's some things to look at.
Yeah. I like those questions. Those are good ones. I think
Yeah.
too, like the compassion and forgiveness of yourself, um, awareness of yourself. When you were mentioning, what are things that bring you joy, I think is something that you brought up. And people who don't have a lot of self-love honestly can't answer that question without someone else's presence. So it's like, oh, I enjoy helping people.
Yeah.
I enjoy, yeah. And so it's not a me thing. I also talked to you about the upper chakras and the heart chakra being sort of imbalanced, in the sense that um, you can think things and have an understanding of a concept,
Yeah.
but it's not here. You can't.
That's what I dealt with myself. And that's why when I went to therapy, I thought I didn't know I had abandonment issues.
Mm-hmm.
And then that caused my codependency. But I rationalized everything, but
Mm-hmm.
never handled the emotion
Yeah.
properly.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think emotion, like understanding, feelings are, we're supposed to feel them, we're supposed to have them, but they're not facts, and they can pass. And I think you had said something in the surrender video that we did about following the feelings, and I think that's really important in getting to self-love too. Is when I say the word self-love, what kind of feelings does that bring into your energy system? It's kind of like, I was doing a literature discussion with some friends the other day, and the topic of sex came up, and just seeing the word actually brought a visceral tension to my body, and I was like, oh, this is a topic I'm not comfortable with. Like, I have a lot of work to do here. So I guess that would be something too that I would ask somebody, like, when you see the words self-love, what does that do to you physically, emotionally, spiritually? How does it impact you? Um,
Also, what about your relationships? Are you constantly finding yourself in relationships where people aren't meeting your needs?
yeah,
Because if you don't know what your needs are, how can you expect anyone to fulfill them?
right.
If you don't know what you like, you don't know what you love, you don't know what your body needs, from a mental health, to a spiritual, to what you're putting in your body, to the exercise, or just what soothes your soul. If you don't know these things, if you don't know the things that make your soul glow, how can anyone provide that to you
Right.
if you can't even provide it for yourself? You're
Right.
just shooting in a barrel.
Yeah. And I think that's what's so important too, is like that you are connecting with the things that make you glow, grow, and love, and then working towards just staying in that space and working from
Feeling
that
like you
space.
deserve it.
And you deserve it. Yeah.
I am in therapy still to this day. And the reason why I'm in therapy is because I want to remove anything that's preventing me from living the life that I deserve to live.
Mm.
Currently in the process of expanding my business. I'm going from like renting space to opening up my own facility. And, I don't know if I would have felt like that was for me. I'd be like, oh, that other people do that. Other
Yeah.
people open their businesses, other people. And it's like, why, what makes them any different than me?
Right.
Why? I deserve it. And I don't think that I would be where I am today without the personal growth that I have taken accountability for, and recognizing that I deserve the best life possible.
Mm-hmm. So what would be like steps towards self-love? What would be things that we can help people, like I think we're talking about it from a conceptual level of, this is what it is to us. How do we give people a little bit of guidance on where to start? Like,
I would say just go back to when you were a child. Go back to when you were a little kid and you knew what you liked and what you loved. Because if you ask any little kid what they like, they know their favorite color, they know their favorite animal. They'll tell you in seconds. And so there was a time in your life where things got clouded,
mm,
and just kind of try to do a little backtracking
yeah,
where it started and getting back to that. Because there's this saying, like, want to get to like a true childlike nature. Some people take that to the extreme, and they're like, oh, they make excuses for their childish mentality.
yeah,
There's a difference between having a childlike nature and having the maturity of a child. And it's important to have that nature and that carefreeness, if that's even a word, and be able to just feel like life, that you're deserving of all the joys of life.
yeah. And I think that the deserving of all the joys of life is a very important thing, because I think that a lot of us that do struggle with self-love don't think that we deserve things. And it may be that, we have those ingrained things that are in our heads that we know aren't true, but we still believe them in our core, and finding ways to reprogram our brains to not believe that and know that we do deserve more. We do deserve everything we ever wanted. The only limitations that exist are the ones that we put on ourselves.
One area that I found that has been difficult for me is sacrifice of my own happiness as being a mother.
Mm,
Because sometimes you have to sacrifice your happiness at the expense of making sure your kid gets everything they deserve and
right.
they're entitled to. And I know that I stayed in the relationship with my son's dad longer than I should have, because I was trying to give him what I felt he deserved, and at least given a full, honest shot of making it work. And I sacrificed my happiness for a long time.
Yeah.
I'll never do that again, but I will always sacrifice for my son.
Yeah.
And it's tough, because where's that line? Mothers are shamed often because of the fact that, they're like, oh, well, you should be doing this. You're having fun. You're out. You're a mom. And it's like, why am I not entitled to actually having an identity and being, a human with needs just because I have a child? I feel like no one would have kids if they had to sacrifice all of their joy. When your kids become your only joy, that's also another form of
Well,
dependency.
yeah, and we'll definitely talk about that in another video.
Yeah.
Because codependency, we can dive into that so deep, and I think we need to.
Yeah, we should do that in one of our next videos.
Yeah,
We're about to wrap up now.
yeah.
I know.
So I think, love of self, get out there and really start to dig into, taking a deep, hard look at yourself, giving yourself some honest feedback about where you came from, why you have this issue with self-love, and trying to find methods that help, whether that be self-help books, whether that be meditation, whether that be writing in your journal. We're reaching out to one of us personally for some guidance. We're always available to you to help with your individual issues, because everyone is unique.
And I'd like to be clear, we are not therapists, but we can counsel within the Reiki spectrum. But it also is important to see a therapist. We know when to refer out and
For
when
mental health.
something that's in our scope of practice. So if it's
Yep.
something that we feel like we can handle, we'll definitely take it. But we know where our place is.
Exactly.
We know our role.
We do. Well, I think this has been a really good conversation, Jen. I look forward to more, and hopefully we'll get some stuff up on codependency soon.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So stay tuned for more videos, and thanks for joining us.
Take care.